Evolution of a Nobody Book 2, chapters 42 and 43. Between Warmth and What Awaits. Albert lay awake in bed, his arm folded behind his head and over the pillow. He stared vacantly up at the darkness of the ceiling. Why can't I remember? Why can't I remember why she's lying in there? That troubled him almost more than knowing she was there at all. There's a hole here, a blank space that needs to be filled in. He squeezed his eyes shut and let out a heavy breath, putting his other arm over his body. I want to remember, but at the same time I also don't. Albert's pulse raced just thinking about it. The answer was obvious. Raziel walked through my entire life up to about 2 years ago. She could walk me through this, too. It was easy to think of that solution, but then asking her, how do I ask her to watch someone's corpse swaying around? As much as she hides it, she's more sensitive than she lets on. This is more than I have any right to ask. His heart ached at just the thought of putting either Raziel or Liala through what broke his own mind, and he said nothing even under his breath. One thing at a time. Tomorrow I will lay her to rest. Maybe I can remember on my own, he finally concluded, but sleep still evaded him until the moment the sun began to crack over the horizon, and he heard the door crack open as the pair returned. Hearing the two babble in their own languages set Albert unexpectedly at ease, and his eyes closed on their own when his body went limp. Then finally he began to snore. When Liala and Raziel entered the bedroom, it was still dark, except for the faint hint of light behind the blinds over the window. He sleeps, Liala said in a tiny whisper in her own tongue. Raziel answered in the language of her birth people in return, when she's buried, do you really want to tell him it might not have been suicide? That might be more cruel than kind. He's already afraid of what will happen if anyone learns he kept her body here. What would this world do to him then? Or worse, what would the knowledge that he was unintentionally protecting his mother's killer? Liala was silent for a brief time. So what do I do, say nothing? You don't know what happened. It's only speculation without proof, and you know Albert as I do. He is a lot like his mother, stubborn. Willful. If he believes you, he won't just let it go. If you turn out to be wrong, it will just destroy him again for nothing. If we come to some proof, then fine. But with nothing? Raziel closed the door behind her and unrolled her sleeping bag at the foot of his bed, while Liala did the same with her own. I must live with what I did to him, the face he made when I confessed. I wanted only to help, and I made it worse. I brought all this out in a terrible way. Don't bring pain to him for nothing. Raziel's guttural tongue made it sound even worse than the meaning of the words alone, at least to Liala's ears, and the angel fell quiet as they slid with a quiet rustling noise into their cool sleeping bags. Whatever Liala thought of the language of demons, it certainly made stark truth starker, and it was enough to make her fall silent. For now, I will stay silent then. The language of angels was far more formal and melodic, a classical symphony to the death metal of the demons, in terms of sound, and where Raziel sounded stark, she knew her own sounded simply formal. But it was what she said that mattered, and the demon took her at her word. They closed their eyes at last and slept. After Lisa saw the phone screen go dark when Albert ended the call, she lay back on her bed with her arms and legs open, splayed out to take up the whole of her space. She dropped the phone on the bedside table and began to replay everything she learned from her parents after Liala took possession of her body and questioned them. They never would have spoken like that to me, not that freely. She did something, used some kind of magic. So that's what it's like for Albert when they make him a puppet. I didn't see that coming, but somehow that's still less surprising than that. I thought it was just my mother and a handful of others his dad was covering. But my father, too, and most of the damn town was tied to that factory and the admin office there, not to mention the hospital. Jesus. I thought the saying was die a hero or live long enough to be the villain, not die a villain so you can be people's hero. With her world turned on its head, she wiped her eyes and clenched her jaw. Those aren't my parents anymore. We were their friends. I can't believe it. How could my dad set up a suicide fund? How could my mom know about it and be all right with it? How could they ask me to just stop seeing him? How could they sit there and tell me his life is over like it's no big deal? She swallowed hard. Whatever tears she had to shed, she'd shed, and that was that. The blanket rustled a little as she rolled over onto her side. The memory of the beating Albert gave to Jason was still fresh in her mind, too. I wonder how long Jason will be in the hospital for. One thing's for sure, nobody will go after Albert again, not after that. She shuddered. He was like something out of a movie. The effortless way he avoided Jason's wild, ape-like swings and then beat the other young man into a bloody pulp, screaming about his eyes and being unable to see. I didn't know he was that strong. And where'd he learn that? Questions piled upon questions, and there were no answers. I want out of here, but I don't want to go alone. God, I can't believe I said that to him. Lisa grabbed her pillow and held the thick fluff over her face and screamed her red-faced embarrassment into it. What if he thinks I'm a slut for throwing myself at him? Was that throwing myself at him? Or what if he thinks I'd be just using him? And holy shit, what about those two? Kind of okay with the angel girl. She seems to not hate me. Raziel probably wouldn't do anything, but at least I'm pretty sure they're not sleeping with him. Can they even do that? So many questions. The more she thought about it, the less likely that seemed, at least. Her previous thoughts on first meeting the demon shifted considerably since then, and with that shift, her own comfort with the world-shattering implications of their existence changed, too. Other worlds. Magic. And here I am just wondering if they were sleeping with the boy I want for myself. It wasn't exactly rational, even Lisa could see that, but she couldn't help it. I just want to get away from all this, get away from them before I become like everybody else. What are things like magic, other worlds, angels, demons? Next to that, trivial. Just worthless trivia unless it gets me and him the fuck out of this shitty place. Anything that doesn't help that can fuck off for all I care. I'll never, ever forgive this stupid town. Not for what it did and not for what it made me do and what it almost made me into. Her blood raced and heart pounded with anger as if she were in the middle of a fight. She clung tighter against the long pillow, clinging to it like it was a person until her alarm began to go off. Red-eyed and sweating or not, the blaring noise told her she had to get up again. The warm afternoon sun bathed Albert's room with light. It caught the slightly off-white walls, making them into an almost golden yellow shade, bright enough that he had to reach up and rub his eyes. He sat up in his bed and yawned, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. He planted his feet into the aged carpet and pushed himself up to a standing position. He stretched his arms out at his side and looked to his left. At the foot of his bed, Raziel and Liala lay snoozing still. Raziel had an almost growling, snoring noise coming from her open mouth that exposed her savage-looking teeth. I wonder if all demons snore that way, or if it's just something she does. It was kind of cute in a horrifying sort of way. The demoness slept with one arm out of the bag. Her talons had clearly been at least somewhat active in her sleep, as little tears were evident here and there, and some of the stuffing of the once expensive sleeping bag was now popping out like tiny white mushrooms scattered about. Her open mouth was wide, and when he looked down from over her, he could see clear to her throat. He snorted. Very cute. He thought again. Her red face and ink-black hair were distinctly alien to him, but were finely featured enough that it was no surprise her human illusion turned a great many heads. Beside her, Liala slept curled up on her side, the up-facing wings pressed against the bag, rising and falling with every breath. Some of her hair was askew and hung outside the sleeping bag. It shimmered like gold in the afternoon light and made the young woman seem even more beautiful than she normally appeared. If this were an anime, this is the part where I'd fall into their boobs. Albert chuckled a little, cracked a smile, and then left the room to go to the kitchen. His smile was gone when he saw the shut door that would open into his late mother's room. Grief washed over him like a river tumbling over the falls. His heart ached enough that he felt compelled to put a hand on his chest until that tight, painful sensation faded. It did, leaving behind only his racing pulse as a reminder. Don't worry, I won't leave you here for long, I promise. He sent his thoughts to the corpse as if they were spoken words and as if the corpse could hear him. It couldn't, of course, he knew that. Whatever she was, all of who she was, that's gone. Gone forever. I'm just putting her where she would have wanted to be. He took a deep breath and walked the rest of the way into the kitchen, leaving the ones who would wake up soon and the one who would never wake up again to their own devices. He cracked open the fridge, the light came on, and his eyes immediately fell to scrambled eggs and a large jug of milk that was only halfway consumed. It's past breakfast time, but it's never a bad time for bacon and eggs. He reached for the long drawer below the shelf where the milk sat and pulled the tray out. No bacon. Of course, why would there be bacon in the apartment when literally everybody eats it but the dead? He rolled his eyes at himself and slapped the drawer shut. Oh well. Next best thing, he quipped and tried to force the smile back on his face. He went to the pantry and pulled out a small container of bacon bits meant for a salad and tossed it over to the counter. It fell, rolled, and stopped when it reached the back. He set himself to cooking, cracking the eggs over the bowl. He pulled out a fork and began to stir with one hand. Reaching for the milk, he poured some into the bowl with the rapidly blending egg yolk. Soon he had a light bronze shade of liquid in the glass bowl, and a minute later he was turning on the stove and ready to cook. Coffee. He uttered the sacred word and glanced at the tragically empty pot. After one glance down at the eggs in the pan to be sure they weren't close to ready, he went to prepare the pot. He filled the clear glass pot to the 12 cups measurement, filled the heating section with water so that it was almost overflowing, and retrieved the coffee grounds. He filled the filter a little higher than he meant to, and some of the grounds spilled over onto the counter and down to the floor. Damn! He mumbled and put the grounds away. He turned on the pot, put away the grounds, and swept the stray dark crumbs into his hand before tossing them into the bin. Within seconds, the sounds of sizzling from the pot and the pan were the only sounds in the apartment. That should be enough for all of us, he thought with satisfaction, and stirred up the slowly solidifying eggs. He added bacon bits to the mix and kept the process going until they were a light and fluffy pile of yellow. Steam rose from the pan while eggs and coffee smells filled the little kitchen area, then almost as quickly spread out to fill most of the small apartment. Albert looked toward the opening to the hallway which divided the rooms and simply waited. It had the desired effect. Angel and demon emerged wearing Albert's borrowed robes and sleepily rubbing their eyes. Wings drooped like they were weary, and they yawned in unison. Coffee? And how about a late breakfast? Albert asked. The pair brightened a little and went to the table to sit down. Yes, please. Raziel and Liala sat themselves down and let their arms go limp at their sides. Could I ask you to bring us a cup? That was a lot of flying last night, and it feels like we burned through 10 bodies worth of mana getting back here without being seen. I'm a crash, Raziel said emphatically and let her head flop to one side to look toward Albert. It's a wreck, Raz. A wreck, Albert corrected her. And yes, I'd be happy to. He poured a pair of mugs, set them on a tray, then placed the sugar bowl and a container of sweet cream beside the mugs and brought the tray over to the table. He set it down between them and scooped up eggs for both of them into single serving bowls and brought them breakfast as well. Whatever thing that is broken, that is us, Raziel replied with a little half-smile as he returned to the table. Don't listen to her, Liala said with a weak smile up at Albert when she saw the little frown of worry on his face. It wasn't that bad, but it was tiring. We'll need some more time to recuperate unless... I'm going to be an afternoon snack, aren't I? Albert quipped, and for a moment the pair looked horrified, mouths open, eyes wide. He laughed. I'm teasing after what you did for me last night and yesterday and the day before. He shook his head, cutting himself off, and then ran a hand through his brown hair before adding, Of course. I might need an orange slice and a cookie afterward, but... He saw the confusion on their faces, the cockeyed look they gave first each other, then himself. Never mind, he said. A bad joke. You seem like you're in good spirits. I wasn't expecting that. Raziel leaned toward him when he sat down at the table after handing out bowls of scrambled eggs to each of them. Are you? You know what we're doing today, right? You remember?